When it comes to Isaac Okoro, honestly, I feel incredibly conflicted. I've been a big fan of Okoro for a long time and have always wanted him to succeed at the NBA level. When the Cleveland Cavaliers selected him 5th overall out of Auburn 4 years ago, he was a raw prospect with the potential to develop into one of the NBA's most coveted of archetypes, that being the 3-and-D wing. And the thought was that in time, given the runway, that he would morph into just that. Well, here we are 4+ years later, and we are still waiting on the potential development to take place. We are still waiting on the other shoe to drop. Now, don't get me wrong. Isaac Okoro has definitely improved every season in some shape or form, but it hasn't quite panned out the way we were all hoping for. There have been glimpses of the latent potential that he has as early as his rookie season. Hell, his 32-point outburst against the Phoenix Suns during his inaugural campaign remains his career high in scoring. He did it all in that game. He flashed his potential as a ball handler, firing off numerous passes that resulted in assists. He took opponents off the dribble. He knocked down catch and shoot triples, and he even displayed semblance of a pull-up jumper, knocking down a step back or two. There have been similar glimpses or flashes in each year following that, and while his playtime has come and gone over the years, with each passing season, Okoro has at least managed to increase his efficiency from three-point distance, having gone from a paltry 29% on 3.2 attempts to 39% on 3.1 attempts just this past season. And while the attempts have gone up and down throughout the years, the makes have gone up. His 1.2 trades per contest were the best of his career. The 2023-24 regular season felt like a breath of fresh air for him at times. He was by far the most effective he had ever been. He was efficient with his limited touches and appeared to finally be turning the corner at times as an off-ball shooter, knocking down 39.5% of his catch and shoot attempts from distance. And I mean, teams still weren't paying him a lick of attention, but improvement was still being made slowly but surely. Now, on the other side of the ball, Okoro has consistently been effective as a perimeter defender. That has never been a question, though. We always knew how impactful of a defender he could be. This past regular season alone, the Auburn product locked down numerous stars at times, with his work against Milwaukee Bucks star guard Damian Lillard perhaps standing out the most. He managed to hold Lillard to 3 of 17 across 4 different games. This is all building towards a breakout postseason where Okoro would truly earn his money, right? I mean, honestly, it felt like it. He had positioned himself to earn a decent pay increase through his regular season play after failing to come to an agreement with the team in the prior offseason. All he had to do was keep it going into the playoffs. Well, we know what happened next. He didn't. Okoro was a solid defender, playing up a position at times at the power forward due to Jarrett Allen's injury, but he simply could not take advantage of the space afforded to him by the defense. He shot 4 of 17, or rather 23.5% against the Orlando Magic in a grueling 7-game series from deep. He would follow that up by shooting 5 of 18 from deep, or 27.8% against the Boston Celtics in round 2. All but one of his 35 attempts in the playoffs were considered open or wide open. We can argue all the livelong day that he has improved, or that he hasn't, or that he wasn't used correctly, but it's hard to argue against the pure stats. He failed to capitalize on all the open looks he was given, and as a result, may have cost himself a lot of money in the process. And so here we are, at a proverbial crossroads where the Cavs have a decision to make. There are options, but almost every decision that can be made could have a lasting effect or implications for both the team and the player. They have his full bird right, so they could sign him to a multi-year contract extension, but the problem with that option is that they are dangerously close to luxury tax territory. With Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley's due contract extensions, along with Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland still being on the books, we can assume that the team may want to stay out of luxury tax territory for as long as possible. If they re-sign him, one of the only ways to stay out of it would be to move one of Caris LeVert or George Niang, or perhaps even both. And with LeVert being a former favorite of new head coach Kenny Atkinson and Niang being a close personal friend of Donovan Mitchell, things could get rather complicated. A multi-year contract extension could also be signed with the intent to move him later on during the season as well. Okoro could sign his qualifying offer. This is probably not the best outcome, but he could bet on himself and sign his $11.83 million qualifying offer. The problem with that option though is twofold. It will give him a no trade clause, making him an unrestricted free agent next offseason, and it would move the team above the threshold. The only way around that would be to work with Okoro on finding a trade partner or moving another player like the aforementioned Levert or Niang, or just playing out the season. They could move him in a sign and trade deal, which would effectively ensure that they would get something in return for his departure. The asking price is believed to be high, but a sign and trade remains a large possibility in my opinion. And in regards to that option, the one name that continues to be mentioned is that of Dorian Finney-Smith, or DFS as the casual fans know him as. And this is the thing. I am certainly not a fan of this type of swap in particular, as DFS is markedly older at 31 compared to Okoro at 23 and hasn't necessarily been that efficient over the past few seasons, but I do understand the logic and the rationale behind it. First and foremost, you aren't letting the asset go for nothing by getting a rotation caliber player in return. And that player may have more utility in terms of fit in Cleveland than Okoro does at the moment. I mean, think about it. Cleveland has a ton of 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys in Max Strus, Caris LeVert, and newly drafted Jalen Tyson all come to mind in that regard. Hell, throw Sam Merrill and even perhaps Ty Jerome in the mix too, as both figure to play a factor at some level this upcoming season. So moving Okoro for the larger DFS would help shore up one of the Cavs' holes at backup 4. Adding DFS would give you immediate Dean Wade insurance, or a player who could immediately step into the rotation behind either forward position and even give you some minutes at the backup 5 as a small ball 5. Just this past season for Brooklyn, DFS logged 72% of his minutes at power forward, 6% at small forward, and 22%, believe it or not, at center. This speaks to his versatility. But I feel like this is where the infatuation truly stops. People are enamored with his positional size and aren't necessarily taking into account how poorly he has performed in Brooklyn from an efficiency standpoint. In 94 career games with Brooklyn, Finney-Smith has managed to complete just 40.2% of his field goals, including 33.7% of his triples. That said, it's not as if DFS has always been a poor or inefficient shot maker. In his last full season with the Dallas Mavericks, he completed a career best 39.5% of his triples on good volume at 5.4 attempts per game. It should also be noted that DFS has a player option for the 2025-26 season. Will the Cavs really want to pony up for a potential 1-year rental? So all that said, I get the allure of DFS as well as the downside of potentially trading for him. With Okoro, things are also complicated. Whatever your opinion of him, whether you see him as a bust, a 3-and-D wing, an all defensive caliber defender, I get it. He has looked like every single one of these things at times and none of them at others. I expect the Cavs to either sign and trade him or re-sign him. They cannot lose him for nothing, so something must eventually be done. A decision must eventually be made. And I'm not here to argue one way or another. I would understand if the team is ready to move on or doesn't want to head into luxury tax territory for him. I also must admit that I remain intrigued with the idea of seeing what Okoro could look like in a different offense that emphasizes ball and player movement alongside a coach that has a well-documented track record for player development in Kenny Atkinson. That idea intrigues me a lot, and for what it's worth, the Cavs have to be at least somewhat interested or intrigued with it too, as it's been reported they have made him multiple offers. The issue is that Okoro must feel these offers are too low. And I get it to a degree, right? Okoro has watched as many of his draft day peers have signed extensions. Deni Avdija, Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith, and Tyrese Halliburton have all been re-signed or signed contract extensions. Avdija got $55 million, Toppin got $58, Smith just got $27. But what is Isaac Okoro's market value? It's honestly truly hard to tell. The Cavs have apparently made offers that align with that mythical market value while also giving him financial security. The numbers haven't been necessarily made public, but it is believed that it's closer to Jalen Smith type of money than Avdija or Toppin type of money. It's just a tough place to be in, but the Cavs are playing it correctly, in my opinion. It's just a tough place to be in, but I do believe that the Cleveland Cavaliers are playing this correctly. Time will tell how it plays out. Let me know how you feel about all this in the comments. Go Cavs!